I'm Dave Dinkle. This video article is entitled, How Does Transactional Funding Work? Together we'll discover how an investor can make a $113,000 profit with no money, no credit, no risk, and totally legally. Transactional funding is designed to be a very short-term loan for the purchase of a property. The amount of time the loan is in effect is usually less than 1 or 2 hours. These types of loans are done in real estate investing when an investor needs money to buy and close on a property, but he has no money himself. However, he has a buyer for the same property who is able to purchase it for cash. The first thought of most new investors is to assign the contract to an end buyer, let him use his money to buy the property, and the investor simply collects an assignment fee. That's the way that most wholesale transactions are done, where there's no money, no credit, and no risk. This method is impractical if the seller will not allow an assignment of his contract or the profit margin is too large. The exact amount of too large a profit varies greatly from seller to seller and buyer to buyer, but we generally try to keep the profit below $15,000 if we are assigning the contract to an end buyer. If the profit is too large, you run the risk of the seller or end buyer changing their mind and you losing the deal. To overcome too large a profit issue or no assignment clause in a contract, we often have to do 2 closings of the same property, which is called a double closing. The cost is slightly less than twice the first closing, and in the bigger picture it's small compared to losing the deal. Once the investor knows he has to do a double closing and he has an end buyer in hand who's paying cash, he needs to find a transactional funder to loan him the money for the purchase of the property for at least a couple of hours. Following is an actual example of what transactional funding looked like in a recent deal that we did. The investor found a property for sale and the seller accepted his offer of $650,000. The investor tried to sell it during the inspection period, but he was unable to do so. Another realtor brought a buyer for the investor who was willing to pay $900,000 for the property. The problem facing the investor is he can make a great profit, but he has no money to close the first part, or the A to B leg of this transaction. That A to B leg is very simply the original seller, homeowner, or property owner selling to the investor who is designated as B in this A to B equation. So what he does is he looks and finds a transactional funder who agrees to loan him the money to close the A to B leg. Now the transactional funder would usually charge about 1% of the $650,000 purchase price, or $6,500 for the use of his money. In the above case, the investor offered the transactional funder 1/2 of the profit in the deal and gave the realtor who brought the end buyer a $15,000 finder's fee. The transaction was completed and the gross profit was approximately $241,000 less the $15,000 finder's fee, which was split between the funder and the investor, approximately $113,000 each. Now, while paying $113,000 for the transactional loan for 2 hours may sound usurious, the investor would have made nothing without the loan. It's very typical for a partner in a transaction, whether it be transactional funding, purchase and rehab, or purchase, hold, and wholesale later, to charge half of the deal as a 50% of the profit. Is this fair to the investor? Once again, if he didn't pay it, he wouldn't do the deal at all. He'd get nothing. So it's not an uncommon practice in the industry, and the investor should go on and find out how to get private money funding for his deals. Join us at aoria.com for tons of more priceless information that can literally change your life.